Welcome to Dreamy Tales, a place where gentle, relaxing stories will guide you into a deep sleep. On this channel, we'll be sharing soothing stories to help you unwind and forget the worries of the day. If you enjoy these peaceful moments, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and tap the notification bell so you won't miss any of our bedtime tales. Let's create a space of relaxation together each night. Now, before we dive into tonight's story, let's take a few moments to relax your body and mind. Find a comfortable spot to sit or lie down. Gently close your eyes and take a deep breath. Inhale slowly, feeling the fresh air filling your lungs, and slowly exhale, letting the tension in your body gradually melt away. Repeat this 3 more times. With each breath, feel yourself becoming more relaxed and ready to enter the magical world of stories. Now, loosen your shoulders, gently massage your face, and release any remaining tension. Pay attention to any areas in your body that still feel tight, maybe in your neck, back, or legs, and gently let them relax. Next, we'll do a short guided visualization. Imagine yourself in a beautiful garden under the night sky, with the soft moonlight shining down. You can hear the rustling of leaves in the breeze, the sound of water flowing gently in the distance. Feel the cool breeze brushing against your face. Now that your body and mind are relaxed, let's step into tonight's story. But before we begin, remind yourself that you deserve these moments of relaxation, and let go of all worries as you listen to each word. And now, as you are fully relaxed, let's begin our journey into tonight's tale. Allow my words to guide you into a world of dreams and serenity. Relax and listen slowly. As the cold wind swept through the quiet countryside, Daniel sat on the wooden bench in front of his small house, letting out a deep sigh. His breath turned into a faint cloud of mist, lingering for a moment before vanishing into the crisp night air. He watched it, feeling the chill on his face as his mind wandered to the stars above. The night sky stretched endlessly, dotted with countless stars. It was one of those serene moments when the world seemed to pause, allowing time to slow down just for a little while. The moon hung high above, glowing with a soft, almost ethereal light. It reminded him of a ball of silvery magic, as his mother used to describe it when he was younger. She would tell him stories about how the moon had a special kind of power, a connection to the universe that made everything feel a little more enchanted. He could almost hear her voice now, as if she were sitting beside him, telling him to make a wish every time they saw a shooting star. The stars twinkled brilliantly, each one shimmering like a tiny diamond, sparkling in the vast expanse of the night. He couldn't help but believe there was some magic in that beauty. The way the stars blinked as if they were alive, each one telling its own silent story. In that stillness, Daniel felt like he was alone in the universe, but it was a peaceful kind of solitude. It wasn't loneliness. Rather, it was a moment of quiet companionship with the world above, a feeling that he was part of something bigger than himself. The sounds of the night were soft, almost soothing. The gentle chirp of crickets echoed through the grass, their songs blending with the rustling of leaves in the trees. The world seemed to be holding its breath, caught in the tranquility of the night. As Daniel sat there, his gaze fixed on the heavens, he thought of his mother, her kindness, and her warmth. How she had always been his guide, teaching him to see the beauty in the world, even in its simplest forms. He sighed again, feeling the cold seeping into his bones, and glanced down at his worn boots. He should go inside, warm up, and prepare for bed. The night was deepening, and the coldness would only grow more intense. As he stood up, the stillness around him felt almost like a dream, one that he didn't want to wake from. But the pull of warmth from the house beckoned him. Turning towards the door, Daniel made his way back inside. His small cottage, though humble, was filled with memories. The roof, which had seen better days, creaked in places, and the walls could use a fresh coat of paint. But it was home, the kind of home that wrapped around you like a warm blanket, offering comfort and security in a world that sometimes seemed too chaotic. He climbed the stairs to his attic room, careful not to make a sound. His mother had already gone to bed, her quiet breathing coming from the room next door. He smiled softly, knowing she would be dreaming of faraway places and bright, shining stars just like he was. He reached his room and opened the window. The moonlight flooded in, illuminating the modest space, casting a pale glow on the wooden beams overhead. He felt a sense of peace settle over him as he slipped under the covers, his body sinking into the softness of the bed. The stillness of the night outside seemed to merge with the warmth inside, and soon he was lost in a world of dreams. The following morning, the sun had already begun its climb in the sky, casting long rays of gold across the land. The warmth from the sun crept through the cracks in the old shutters of Daniel's room, waking him before his mother had even stirred. For a moment, he just lay there, his eyes still closed, soaking in the peacefulness of the early morning. The day had begun, and the world was coming to life once again. After a few moments, Daniel pushed the covers aside and swung his legs over the side of the bed. His feet touched the cold wooden floor, sending a shiver up his spine, but he didn't mind. It was a feeling he was used to. He quickly slipped on his shoes and made his way downstairs, careful not to make too much noise. The house was still, save for the soft creaking of the floorboards under his weight. Outside, the world was already bustling with life. The night had melted away, leaving the warmth of spring in its wake. The birds were singing their early morning songs, their melodies blending with the rustling of the trees as a gentle breeze swept through the open fields. The air was crisp, yet there was a promise of warmth to come. The flowers in the garden had begun to bloom, their bright colors bursting from the earth, painting the landscape in hues of purple, yellow, and pink. Daniel walked to the chicken coop, the sound of his boots crunching the gravel beneath him. His steps were light, almost joyful, as he thought about the surprise he was planning for his mother. She loved breakfast in bed, and today he was determined to make it special. The old chicken, who was no longer as reliable as she once had been, had laid a single egg that morning. Daniel smiled to himself, grateful for the small miracle. As he bent down to collect the egg, his eyes caught something unusual. His heart skipped a beat. Right there, in the very spot where he had made his wish the night before, there was something growing. A plant, unlike any he had ever seen before. It wasn't just a simple sprout, no. It was a beanstalk, tall and thick, winding upward like a massive rope, its vines twisting around one another in a spiral. The beanstalk stretched high into the air, so high that it disappeared into the clouds above, leaving Daniel standing in awe. His breath caught in his throat. This couldn't be real, could it? It had to be the result of his wish. The shooting star he had wished upon, the one he had hoped would bring joy to him and his mother, had somehow answered him. It was magical, like something out of one of the stories his mother used to tell him. But this wasn't a dream. It was real. He could feel the pull of the beanstalk, a magnetic force that seemed to call him upward, urging him to climb. Without thinking, Daniel reached out and touched the beanstalk. The surface was smooth, like polished wood, and as he ran his fingers along its length, he felt a shiver of excitement. It was as though the vine had been waiting for him. Small offshoots sprouted from the thick stem, forming a perfect ladder that stretched up toward the heavens. It was impossible to resist. He knew, without a doubt, that this was his moment. He took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest, and began to climb. As Daniel climbed higher and higher, the world below him began to fade away. The ground, once so familiar, seemed distant and small. The air grew warmer, thick with the scent of summer, even though the sun had not fully risen. It was as though he had entered a different world entirely, one where time and space no longer mattered. The beanstalk twisted around him like a living thing, its vines supporting him with an almost sentient care. Each step he took felt effortless, as though the ladder was made just for him, guiding him upward with gentle ease. The leaves rustled softly in the wind, and he could hear the distant sounds of nature. Buzzing bees, the faint calls of birds, but they all felt muffled, as if he were enveloped in a world apart. The farther he climbed, the less he could see of the land below, until it was nothing more than a distant memory. His hands gripped the smooth vines, and he wondered how something so ordinary could feel so extraordinary. The beanstalk, with its sleek surface and mysterious energy, seemed to pulse with life. He could almost hear a hum, a gentle vibration in the air around him. It was as though the very plant was alive, aware of his presence. Daniel's heart raced with excitement and trepidation, and his thoughts whirled with the possibilities of what lay ahead. As he ascended, the atmosphere grew heavier, and a strange mist began to swirl around him. It was not like fog. It was thicker, almost tangible, wrapping around him like a cloak. The world around him was bathed in a soft glow, as though the light itself had taken on a golden hue. The beanstalk stretched endlessly, its vines winding upward through the clouds, their tops disappearing into the unknown. Daniel felt like a tiny speck in an infinite world, his body straining against the pull of the air, but still he climbed. He stopped for a moment, his body aching from the effort. Sweat beaded on his brow, and he wiped it away with the back of his hand. His stomach growled, reminding him that he had skipped breakfast in his haste to climb. But he barely noticed the hunger now. His mind was focused on one thing: reaching the top. Just as he was about to resume his climb, a voice boomed from above, startling him. The sound was so powerful that it seemed to shake the beanstalk beneath him, sending a shiver through the vines. Daniel froze, gripping the ladder with both hands as the voice echoed down to him. "Hey, you there." The voice was deep and resonant, filling the air around him with its sheer force. "Are you okay?" Daniel stood motionless, his heart pounding in his chest. The beanstalk trembled slightly with the vibrations of the voice, and he wondered if the voice belonged to something or someone up there, far beyond the clouds. He hesitated, then called out in a small, almost nervous voice, "Hello?" For a moment, there was silence. Then, without warning, a massive hand appeared from above, descending toward him like a great shadow. It was so large that it blotted out the sky, its fingers wide enough to grip the beanstalk itself. Daniel's eyes widened in shock as the hand reached toward him, the air around it stirring with a strange magnetic force. "Hop on," the voice said again, this time softer, almost inviting. Daniel's heart raced with a mix of fear and wonder. His hands shook as he reached out for the giant hand, unsure of what to expect. The hand, warm and gentle despite its enormous size, wrapped around him like a protective shield. With a slight pull, he was lifted off the beanstalk and into the air. As he rose higher, Daniel couldn't help but glance down at the beanstalk below. The earth seemed so far away now, a distant memory. The air around him grew warmer, and he felt the gentle hum of something powerful, something beyond his understanding. He had crossed into a realm that was unlike anything he had ever known. And, as he looked up, he saw something that took his breath away. The clouds that had seemed so distant and insubstantial earlier now appeared close enough to touch. They were thick and swirling like cotton candy spun in the sky. The giant hand carried him through them, the mist parting to reveal a vast, unfamiliar landscape. There, in the distance, he saw towering structures that seemed to defy logic, floating castles, strange creatures roaming the land, and a sky filled with colors he had never seen before. This was no ordinary world. This was a place of magic, a place where the impossible became possible. The giant hand gently set Daniel down on the soft ground, and as his feet touched the earth, he felt an overwhelming sense of awe. The landscape around him was like nothing he had ever seen before. The sky was a brilliant mixture of colors, golden hues blending into soft lavender and pale pink, as though the dawn and dusk were happening simultaneously. Strange trees with twisting trunks and glowing leaves rose up from the ground. The air hummed with energy, filled with a kind of magic that seemed to breathe through every living thing. Daniel stood there for a moment, taking it all in. His heart raced as he tried to comprehend the sheer magnitude of what he was witnessing. This world, this realm, was alive in ways that his world could never be. It was as though every stone, Every blade of grass was infused with a purpose, a power that transcended the laws of nature. He glanced around, trying to make sense of where he had landed. The ground beneath him was soft, like moss, yet firm enough to support his weight. The trees around him seemed to pulse with life, their branches swaying gently despite the lack of wind. Flowers bloomed in colors he had never seen, blues and reds that seemed to glow with an internal light. The scent of the air was sweet, like honey and wildflowers, filling his lungs with each breath. "Where am I?" Daniel whispered to himself, his voice barely audible in the stillness. Suddenly, a soft rustling sound came from behind him. He turned quickly, his eyes wide with curiosity. Out from behind one of the glowing trees emerged a creature unlike anything he had ever imagined. It was tall, much taller than any human, with long, flowing hair that shimmered like silver in the soft light. Its skin was pale, almost translucent, and its eyes glowed with a strange, otherworldly light. The creature approached Daniel with a slow, graceful stride, its presence both calming and commanding. It seemed to radiate an aura of power, but there was no malice in its eyes, only curiosity. "You've arrived," the creature said, its voice soft yet rich, as though it carried the weight of ages. Daniel stood frozen for a moment, unsure of what to say. His mind was racing, trying to process the situation. He had just climbed a beanstalk that had led him to this magical realm, and now he was face to face with a being from a world he could never have imagined. Where am I?" Daniel finally managed to ask, his voice shaky. "You are in the realm beyond," the creature replied, its voice echoing in the air. "This is the place where the wishes of the heart come to life, where dreams and desires take form, where magic flows through every living thing." Daniel felt a shiver run down his spine. He had heard stories of magical lands, places where dreams came true, but never had he imagined he would actually find himself in one. And yet, standing in the middle of this strange, vibrant world, he couldn't deny the truth of the creature's words. "How did I get here?" he asked, still trying to make sense of it all. "The beanstalk brought you," the creature said with a slight smile. "Your wish reached out to the universe, and the magic of this world answered. The beanstalk is the bridge between your world and ours. It is a gift given to those whose hearts are pure, whose desires are true." Daniel's mind was spinning. A gift? His wish had brought him here. He thought back to the wish he had made on the shooting star the night before. He had asked for joy, for happiness to fill his heart and his mother's. But how could a beanstalk, a plant from the earth, be the answer to such a wish? "You're wondering why you were chosen," the creature said, its voice as though it had read his thoughts. "The magic of this realm does not work in the ways you might expect. It does not grant wishes like a genie, nor does it provide simple answers. It gives only what is needed, what is required to fulfill your heart's true longing." Daniel stared at the creature, his heart pounding in his chest. He had thought his wish was simple, just a hope for joy, for something better for himself and his mother. But perhaps it was more than that. Perhaps this world had something greater in store for him, something he couldn't yet understand. "Come," the creature said, extending a hand toward him. "There's much you must learn. The path ahead is long, but you are ready." Daniel hesitated for a moment, but then something deep within him stirred, a feeling of excitement, of adventure. He had no idea what lay ahead, but he knew this was his chance. This was the opportunity he had always dreamed of, even if it was a dream beyond anything he could have imagined. With a deep breath, Daniel stepped forward, taking the creature's hand. And as they walked deeper into the mystical landscape, he felt the weight of the world behind him, slowly fading away. This was his new beginning. As Daniel walked beside the creature, the landscape continued to unfold before him in ways that felt both familiar and utterly alien. The air was thick with magic, and every step he took seemed to make the world around him shimmer and shift. It was as though the very ground beneath his feet was alive, responding to his presence. Flowers bloomed at his feet, and the trees bent their branches toward him, their leaves glowing with an ethereal light. The creature led him through the forest, their footsteps barely making a sound as they moved through the thick undergrowth. The path they followed was lined with strange, glowing plants that seemed to pulse with life, their colors changing as they walked past. Daniel couldn't help but marvel at the beauty of it all. It was like stepping into a dream where everything was possible, where the boundaries between reality and fantasy had dissolved. After what felt like hours, though the sun had not moved, they reached a clearing in the forest. In the center of the clearing stood a massive stone structure, its surface covered in intricate carvings that seemed to tell stories of ancient times. The stones shimmered with a soft, golden light, as though they were infused with magic. At the top of the structure was a large archway, beyond which Daniel could sense a powerful energy. "This is the gateway," the creature said, its voice reverberating through the air. "Beyond it lies the heart of this realm, where all the magic flows. It is a place of great power, and only those who are truly ready may enter." Daniel's heart skipped a beat. The heart of the realm? This was what he had come for, wasn't it? But was he ready? He glanced at the creature, who seemed to read his uncertainty. "You have already proven yourself by coming this far," the creature said, its tone reassuring. "The beanstalk has brought you here for a reason. It has chosen you, just as it chooses all those who have a true heart, one that seeks something beyond themselves. But the journey ahead will require more than just courage. It will require understanding, patience, and wisdom." Daniel nodded slowly, though doubts still lingered in his mind. He had no idea what lay beyond the gateway. What kind of trials or tests would he face? And what was the true purpose of this journey? "Will I find what I'm looking for?" Daniel asked, his voice barely more than a whisper. The creature turned its glowing eyes toward him, its gaze intense and filled with ancient knowledge. "What you seek is already inside you," it said, "but to find it, you must first understand the nature of this world and the nature of yourself." With that, the creature stepped forward, its long flowing hair trailing behind it like a cloud of silver. It reached out toward the gateway, and as its fingers touched the stone, the carvings seemed to come alive. The stones shifted, their shapes changing and rearranging themselves, revealing a glowing path that led into the archway. "Go now," the creature said. "Your journey is just beginning. But remember this: the path to wisdom is not always easy. The answers you seek may not come as you expect. Trust yourself and trust the world around you." With those final words, the creature stepped back, disappearing into the shadows of the forest. Daniel stood there for a moment, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing on him. There was no turning back now. He had come this far, and there was only one way forward. Taking a deep breath, Daniel stepped toward the gateway, the glowing path beckoning him onward. As he crossed the threshold, the world around him seemed to shift once more. The air grew warmer, and the golden light from the stones bathed him in a soft, comforting glow. He felt as though he were walking through a dream, each step leading him deeper into the heart of this magical realm. The path ahead twisted and turned, but there was no mistaking the sense of purpose that guided him. Every step seemed to bring him closer to something greater, something he could not yet understand. The further he walked, the more the world around him seemed to change. The trees became taller, their trunks wide and gnarled, their branches heavy with strange fruit that glowed with an inner light. The ground beneath him seemed to pulse with energy, as though the very earth was alive, breathing in time with his steps. As he walked, he began to notice subtle changes in the air. It felt thick, almost tangible, as though the magic in the realm was gathering around him, responding to his presence. He could feel the weight of the world pressing down on him, but it was not oppressive. Instead, it was a reminder of the power and potential that lay just beyond his reach. Suddenly, the path before him opened up into a vast, open space. In the center of the space stood a massive tree, its roots stretching deep into the earth, its branches reaching up to the sky. The tree was unlike any Daniel had ever seen. Its bark was a shimmering silver, and its leaves glowed with a soft green light. The air around it hummed with magic, and Daniel felt an overwhelming sense of awe as he approached. This was it, the heart of the realm, the source of all the magic. As Daniel approached the magnificent tree, a deep sense of reverence washed over him. The air around the tree shimmered with an almost tangible energy, as though it were alive, breathing alongside him. Each leaf glowed with a soft green light, casting shadows that seemed to dance in time with the gentle swaying of the branches. The tree stood tall and proud, its trunk wide and sturdy, and its roots dug deep into the earth as though it were the very foundation of the realm itself. When Daniel stepped closer, he could feel the warmth radiating from the tree, filling him with an overwhelming sense of peace and purpose. The closer he got, the more the magic in the air seemed to pulse around him, wrapping itself around his heart, filling him with the knowledge that this was the moment he had been waiting for. He reached out a hand and touched the trunk of the tree. The bark was smooth and cool to the touch, but as soon as his fingers made contact, a wave of energy surged through him. His vision blurred for a moment, and he felt as though he were being pulled into the very essence of the realm itself. In that instant, he understood. The magic, the beanstalk, the wish, and the journey had all been leading him here to this moment. The answers he sought, the joy he wished for, were not something to be found in the world around him. They had always been inside him, waiting to be discovered. The tree's energy was not just magical, it was ancient, filled with the wisdom of ages past. It spoke to him without words, filling his mind with images of faraway lands, of dreams and desires fulfilled, of the interconnectedness of all things. He saw visions of his mother, smiling, her heart full of love and happiness. He saw himself, his heart light and free, sharing in the joy of the world around him. It was as though the tree was showing him the future he had always longed for, one filled with peace, love, and fulfillment. "You have come," a voice boomed, not from any one place but from all around him, as though the very air was speaking to him. "You have journeyed far, but your true journey has just begun. The heart of the realm has granted you understanding, but it is now up to you to carry this knowledge with you. The magic you seek lies not in the world around you, but within yourself." Daniel closed his eyes, letting the voice wash over him. He felt the truth of the words settle deep within his soul. This world had shown him that magic was not just something that existed in distant lands or in the stories told by his mother. It was within him, in his heart, his desires, and his actions. The joy he had wished for, the joy of his mother, the joy of his own heart, was something he could create, something he could cultivate, right here in his own world. As the vision began to fade, Daniel opened his eyes and found himself standing before the tree once more. The golden light around him had dimmed, and the air felt still once again. The creatures and the strange plants were gone, but the sense of peace and understanding remained. He took a deep breath, his chest rising and falling with the weight of everything he had just learned. "Thank you," he whispered to the tree, his voice full of gratitude. "Thank you for showing me the way." The tree's leaves rustled softly, as though in acknowledgement of his words. It didn't need to speak. It had already shared everything he needed to know. With a final glance at the magnificent tree, Daniel turned and began his journey back. The path that had once seemed uncertain now felt clear, illuminated by the newfound wisdom that burned brightly within him. The beanstalk was still there, winding up into the clouds, but he no longer needed to climb it to find his answers. The answers were within him, and he carried them with him as he made his way home. As Daniel descended the beanstalk, he could see the world below him, his world, waiting for him, just as he had left it. The sun was rising, casting its warm light across the land, and he felt a deep connection to everything around him. The magic of the realm had not left him. It was now part of him, and he could feel it in the beat of his heart, in every step he took. When he reached the ground, he was not alone. His mother was waiting for him, standing by the house, her eyes wide with surprise and joy. She had felt something, she said, as though the world had shifted in a way she couldn't explain. And in that moment, Daniel realized that the journey he had taken, the magic he had encountered was not just his own. It was theirs, shared between them, bound by love, by joy, and by the dreams they had always carried in their hearts. Together, they would make their wishes come true. Together, they would create the joy they had always desired. And as Daniel smiled at his mother, he knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together, with hearts full of magic and hands ready to create a world of their own.